booties for black girl nerds.
Jodie Turner-Smith looking like all the regal gorgeousness today. How are you doing?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
Very good. Thank you. I appreciate your time and I appreciate Kyra in this film. I thought about my own like connections to people, soulmates, the people, just people in our lives that we connect with. When you think of your greatest attachments, romantic, friendships, whatever, what is your own thoughts on soulmates, how Yang interacts with this family, but just on soulmates in general? What are your own thoughts on that?
I mean, I would like to believe that we do have soulmates. I think my husband is my soulmate. I think also though the concept of soulmate perhaps is broader than what we think it is, or than what like movies tell us it is, except this movie. In that I think, when you find somebody who sees you, that person is a soulmate, someone who really sees your soul and your spirit. And this movie is about seeing and being seen, connection, essentially. So yeah, that's my answer.
Yang's ability to connect with the family is interesting, and they're all different in the ways that. How would you describe the connection that Yang and Kyra have together? Because it's very different from Ada's and what that means, and to your young child in the film. What is their connection essentially? But and one thing before you answer that, you have the most wonderful, sweetest voice in this movie. It made me think of like an app, like I'd want to listen to you when I go to sleep.
Thank you. Thank you.
So
Coconut really brought that out of me. I feel like I was allowed to be so gentle and still, and that means a lot to me as a Black woman and as an actor, because just being allowed to exist on camera in a way that shows your vulnerability and also your power, but your power through vulnerability and grace, that's always really freeing and amazing. But kind of, in talking about like Kyra's relationship with Yang, and really kind of going back to the first thing you asked, which is about soulmates, I think that your soulmate, and I believe you can have more than one, is brought into your life to teach you something. And, for our family in this film, Yang is really there. Like, we don't learn the lesson until we start exploring his memories, because as many people want to do, when you're like, okay, this is essentially someone who helps take some of the load and the stress and the burden of what it means to raise a child that comes from a culture that is different from ours, and who just needs a lot of time and attention when we're two working people, you then kind of rest on your laurels and you're like, well, he's taking care of that. And instead of connecting with him while he was just really watching all of us and connecting with us. And it wasn't until going back and watching those memories and seeing how he came to be a soulmate of this family and to teach us something about connecting with each other, about being seen by each other. I mean, we were able to see, a lot of times we don't see ourselves the way other people see us. Mm-hmm. And it's so unique that we had this that we have this robot who essentially, and we got to look at his memories and see like how he was seeing us, how we were showing up at different points in our lives, how we showed up to him, how we were showing up for each other. So yeah, I really think Kyra has like a very practical relationship with Yang. She's like, he serves this purpose and that's what he is. And I think even for her, she didn't recognize her emotional connection to him until going back and looking through his memories, in terms of, and like with a lot of people, we never realize, we take them for granted until we see like what they did for us and what they were showing us, how they, and in Yang's case, by looking at his memories, it was like someone holding a mirror up, right? Because we were seeing ourselves reflected back to ourselves through his eyes. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
It was beautiful, because like you say, we don't know the impression that we're making on people. So it's fascinating to see the memories that resonated and stayed with him, because it's not what we think they are. It's never like the party or this. It's just those intimate moments that stay with a person, and that's what Yang was with this family. I want to go back to what you said about your tone in the film. The cadence was interesting for all of the characters in the tone. Yang had a very intentional way of speaking that was implied robotic, but it was still interesting and feeling and intentional. And with your voice, I loved the sweetness of it. But even when you were reinforcing your thoughts, or, like, don't promise the baby things that you can't deliver on, it was still with intent, but it was still gentle and kind. And the portrayal we usually see of Black women, it has to be like, don't tell her that, and, depicting us to be a certain way. Tell me about your process of perfecting what that would sound like, because it was so different from the other characters, but it was like a wonderful soup, the way you all spoke to each other, but it was still very different for each character.
I think so much of it, it's so interesting because I really didn't think to myself like, okay, well, this is how I want to talk. But it's like, I think, our voice, just like anything else, I mean, we are making sound come out through the vibration of vocal cords, and vocal cords are a muscle inside of our body. And so it is our physical body communicating into the world, and it has everything to do with intention and also how you feel inside your body. When we're really tense, our voice sounds a certain way. When we're really relaxed, it sounds a certain way. When we're trying to, and I feel like for Kyra, she's going through so much internally that she feels like nobody else can see. But at the same time, as many women are, she understands that she is the linchpin of her family, and that she is the person who's sort of balancing the family in a way that keeps it grounded. And at the same time, desperately wanting to ground herself in how she talks to her family, so she doesn't kind of go off into whatever it is that is her private pain. And so I really feel like, we're really seeing someone who is reaching for patience as well. Because the whole movie, Kyra is existing in a state of frustration about several different things. The ways in which she doesn't feel like her husband is showing up, the ways in which she wants to be a certain type of mother to her daughter, but is pulled with work, is trying to create a relationship where, everyone is pulling their weight in a way that makes it okay for her to go to work, is relying very heavily on this machine who she doesn't really see as a person at first. And so she feels guilt about how much they're relying on the machine. And she's trying to be the best mother that she can be. And I think all of that sort of manifested in this person who, when she turned to her family to speak to them, she's really digging deep to find this place of like peace and patience. And I think it has a lot to do with sometimes when people are on the edge, they go in one direction. But I feel like Kyra is a woman on her own edge, and she's not sort of going in sort of the direction of being more hysterical. She is like trying to ground herself into the earth and hoping that approach gets her the results that she wants. And we don't know what happened before this film. Like perhaps she has gone in other directions and it didn't work. And we're finding her because we see like in all of these conversations, they felt like conversations that had been had time and time and time again. And Kyra feels like somebody who like goes to a therapist and is like talking to them about how do I talk to my husband about him not being involved. And now he's chasing after getting this damn robot fixed. And what we need to do is be a family. And it's like her therapist is like, breathe and speak with kindness.
I mean, it's beautiful. I mean, it really is kind of like a spotlight, holding up a mirror for just women in general, even in the midst of trying to balance and make sure the husband's happy and the house is taken care of. Even in that, she's saying, we're relying too heavily on this machine. We need to be hands-on and intentional with raising this child and not letting it, if you want to liken it to an iPad or a cell phone or all the things that we do. But you were marvelous. I just enjoyed you very, very much. And I enjoyed this film. I appreciate your time, Queen. You were wonderful.
Thank you.
I love seeing you in films like this. It was very moving, and it was very telling of my own life and my reliance on machines. So I thank you so much for that.
Amazing. But I do want to say one thing, because what is so important in this story is that, Kogonada created a world in which there are different possibilities for what happens when we rely on machines. And
Mm.
when we cracked Yang open and we looked at all his memories and looked at how this machine, this artificial intelligence was existing in the world, and essentially the humanity that he showed, even though he was not human, it's like it shows us what we can do, how far we could go. Because I think even for Kyra, she realized, she was like, I've been just looking at him like he's just this machine, but he has been this entity who has been looking at us and serving our needs in this way beyond, and now teaching us what is possible if we stop and we just look at the moments in between. And so, you know, it makes me hopeful about how we could have a connection with technology that's bigger than just like, you know, your phone, which is essentially just listening to you and taking things from you and not really, I mean, that scene with Yang and Mika and the tree grafting, it's like this was,
Mm-hmm.
and even the butterfly scene between Kyra and Yang, where it's like she was so healed by that conversation. And it wasn't until watching it back and just seeing how she remembered it versus the memory that he had captured, where it was just like, there is a really beautiful conversation that Kogonada is having about what is possible for our connection to technology and how it can actually make us more human.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, the tree grafting was.
I
That was,
cried so
that was
hard.
that was
Oh,
lovely. Thank you, Queen, for your time. Beautiful project, and I just appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
thanks.
Thank you, Justin, for your time. I loved your wonderful performance in this project. Thank you for your time.
Oh, I appreciate that. And it's so great to meet you, Jeandra.
Thank you. What was, in addition to the connections that Yang has with the family, first I want to start with just your portrayal itself. There is such an interesting depth to it that we know that he is not a human. He's like a machine. And within that performance, the cadence of how you speak to the family and how you interact with them was very interesting to me, because while it had warmth and depth, it was clear he wasn't a person per se with the cadence that you use for the character. How did you get the tone of that right for this part?
It's a really great question. It was a lot about intentionality. I think, especially in this day and age, everything is so instantaneous. Everything is so given to us on a silver platter. Nothing is really thought through. Someone can send out a tweet instantaneously. And because of that, I wanted to pair that back to what would it feel like for someone to really think about every word that's going to come out of their mouth before saying it. And I think just that small adjustment of being very intentional and hyper aware of what Yang was saying allowed the cadence to sort of come naturally. It wasn't something that I tried to really put upon. It was more this intentionality and being hyper aware of what he was saying. And I think that even manifests itself in the movement as well. It was never about rigidity or sort of blockiness to the movements. It was sort of, what does it feel like to be so aware when I'm moving a finger, and why am I moving that finger? And let me be intentional about moving that finger or turning a certain way or looking at a certain thing. And I just thought an AI would be very good at doing that because they are hyper aware of everything that they're doing, and everything that they do serves a specific function.
With that, that intentionality, it resonates with some of the family members. Well, he resonates with the family members each in their different way, but particularly with Ada and with the young lady who is his younger sister. The there's a lot of thoughts I have about soulmates and connections. When you think of what a soulmate is by your own term, what does Yang have in common with your own understanding, or even if that is something you believe in terms of soulmates and the way we connect with specific people, not just in intimate, like personal romantic relationships, but just people in general?
Yeah, I definitely do believe in soulmates. I don't believe that like everyone has a single soulmate, but I believe in soulmates, plural, that we all have. And I guess the best way I can describe it is you encounter people in your life who seem to have an understanding of who you are and can see you for who you are. And not a lot has to be explained. Not a lot has to be talked about even. And you get this innate sense like this person sees me, knows me, and that requires no real effort. And I think when you encounter people like that, it is a very special sort of transcendent experience. And you hope to, stay connected to that person, whether romantically or even as a friend.
Mm-hmm. Lastly, with films, with these beautiful independent films, it's a different energy, it's a different type of storytelling. What drew you initially to the part of Yang? Why was this a portrayal that was of particular interest to you?
Well, first of all, I was a huge fan of Cognana's work. I had seen his visual essays. I really enjoyed Columbus. And so when I first got the script, I kind of expected it to be good, which is a very dangerous expectation to have as an actor, but it far and away exceeded my expectations. I think what drew me to the script was all of the things that it explores, but it does it in such a subtle, nuanced way, in a way that asks you as the audience to ask yourself, as opposed to give you any concrete answers about. And for me, the questions that kept ringing true as I was reading was, what is family? What does it mean to be a son and a brother? What is Asian identity? And for me, particularly as an Asian American, what does that mean to me today? And these are all questions that I don't have full answers to, and yet I loved the story and the script explored these things, and I just knew that if given the chance, I would love to be a part of that process, that story.
Well, I enjoyed you tremendously. One of my favorite parts was the conversation that you had about the tea and why tea is made. And I just love that scene. That was such a terrific scene. It really made me lean in and watch how you guys interacted with each other. Thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed you in this, and I appreciate you talking to me.
Thank you so much. It was so lovely meeting and speaking with you, Jeandra.
Take care. Haley, you look so beautiful and refreshed, and it reminds me of your character, just like this refreshing spirit into Yang's life. How are you doing today?
Oh, you felt like Ada was refreshing?
Yeah, she gave me a kind of refreshing thing because with her, I felt like she got to see sides of him that they didn't see. When I thought of his cadence and the way he communicated and interacted with the family, it was very deliberate and specific. And he didn't have the opportunity to really be, although he's not human. What is your impression of what she's like and what she brings to his existence?
Well, that's cool. I never thought of the word refreshing, but I guess it kind of is. Like, she is kind of the only one. Well, her and Mika, the little sister, I really think she sees him as a part of the family and her older brother. But yeah, Ada really connects to him. Like, they are both experiencing life together. And it's not even a question of is he human or not. It's just this person, this being, this thing is I'm having a shared experience with. And that's kind of that's cool that you use the word refreshing, because it is kind of what sparks like the whole story and the journey for the rest of the family members of really going on that, having those questions and those realizations of like, whoa, this Yang is a part of our family, and he's been experiencing us in ways that we have even been unaware of. So I think it's really cool that Ada is a part of the story that like feels that and sees that so deeply, even from the beginning. Yeah.
When I look at him and just the whole interaction, there's just so much more depth of emotion besides with the young girl who's a part of the family, his younger sibling. There is that ability for him to go beyond their expectations of him. When you think of Ada and her journey and that shared experience that they have together, would you say it's sad? Would you say how would you describe just that shared experience that they have together?
It is like so deep.
Mm-hmm.
And profound. I feel dumb saying that word, but it is. It's like it's such a, and the big realization at the end that's uncovered. No spoilers, I guess, but like it's just so much deeper than she even knew. And I think about like what it means to be a soulmate with someone. Like I feel like I have a couple people that I've known in my life, been with in my life, that have been like really like, I feel the soul connection. I'm like, wow, I was meant to be with this person, to know this person, even if it's for a time. And that's so deep. And that's like, you know, a spiritual thing that I feel. But this movie kind of explores like with being a robot and clones and like the past lives. Just that how they kind of found each other again. I don't know if I'm spoiling things. I'm trying to talk as vague as possible.
Right.
But yeah, that whole concept is just so deep. And it really just made me personally think of like that soulmate thing can kind of transcend even into technology. That technology has become so human that like Yang doesn't have a soul, you know, but
right.
There is this soulmate connection, and there is this like these past, like this knowing and this like heaviness of a past and a past life. So I think that's very cool. I could think and talk about that for hours.
I mean, it is profound. You know, people who will watch the film will see at the end what all these connections and family and what Yang means to people when he enters into their life. But for Ada, as we come to know who she is, it's kind of mysterious. We don't know, but we learn. When you think of her and who she is at the core, is she unhappy because of these life experiences, or do you think it's a true seeking out, like feeling like something is missing from her life, so she has to go seek it out? Is it from a place of sadness or just more of a curiosity, I guess?
That's such an interesting question. Kogonada, when we were first talking about Ada, he used the word melancholy a lot. And it's a word that like he loves, and he loves to kind of explore that feeling of melancholy because it's so like, it can feel so empty, but under that emptiness, there's like so much brewing. And so I think that this melancholy, like there's a yearning, but it's not a desperate yearning. It's like a just wanting to feel understood and feel a connection and feel like, because she's a clone, wanting to feel like she's like original and she's herself and she has like a purpose beyond just filling this void for, you know, the family that has cloned her. Or with Yang, I think that's part of the reason they connect so much, because Yang has a similar experience with wanting to be something other than, you know, his role in the family, although that role in the family is truly enough for him, which is also so beautiful about the story and his character. But just feeling like they can be enough for each other without having to be labeled human or clone, or you know what I mean? Like they are just enough, just being and experiencing life together as themselves, whatever that is.
Well, I thank you. I was very moved by it. I was moved by your performance, and it was very interesting and unique. I love this project. Thank you so much for your time. And, you know, hopefully I'll get to talk to you again in the future because I want to revisit it.
Thank you so much for saying all that. And you had such great questions.
Better shake your booties for black girl nerds. Better shake your booties for black girl nerds.